Humans had always been underestimated by their neighbors, their rivals, even by themselves. But no one in the galaxy miscalculated them quite as catastrophically as the Dominion. It began on a quiet cycle on the frontier world of Halion 3. The sun was rising as Captain Mara Vance stood on the outer balcony of the Alliance outpost, sipping synth coffee and watching a dust storm form on the horizon. A deceptively calm moment before a storm far greater than weather. She didn't yet know that within an hour, the first ultimatum would arrive. Beginning the ultimatum. The Dominion fleet appeared without warning. 12 capital ships, each one larger than the outpost itself. Their hulls shimmered with the blue-black alloy unique to their species, the kind that seemed to drink in the light around it. Sirens howled across the base. Soldiers scrambled, engineers rushed to shield stations, and drones leapt from their ports like awakened insects. Mara dropped her mug. It shattered on the steel floor. "They're not supposed to be here," Lieutenant Rafi gasped as he ran to her side. Negotiations were still. "Negotiations were a distraction," Mara replied, voice steady. "They wanted us looking the other way." A hologram crackled to life above the courtyard. The Dominion emissary, Archon Trisvac, appeared. Tall, insectoid, pale plates covering a serpentine frame. His eyes burned crimson. "Human alliance," he declared. "Your expansion violates Dominion boundaries. You will surrender your colonies, your armaments, and your strategic worlds, including Earth, within 6 cycles. Gasps rippled through the soldiers. "Refuse," the Archon continued, "and we will remove your species from the galactic ledger." A pause. "You have no hope of matching our armada. Capitulate and live. Resist and end." The hologram blinked out. Rafi looked at Mara. We can't win against that, can we?" Mara didn't answer immediately. She watched the massive ships blot out the sky, their shadows crawling across the desert like claws closing around her throat. Humans had fought many wars, but this was annihilation. Still, she inhaled sharply and said, "We don't surrender. Ever." Her voice carried across the courtyard. Soldiers straightened. Some smiled grimly. Others clenched their fists. Humanity might lose, but it would not kneel. The first strike. The Dominion didn't wait for 6 cycles. They attacked that same day. Bolts of plasma carved through the atmosphere like falling suns. The outpost's shields held for 6 minutes, long enough for evacuation shuttles to flee into the sky, then failed in a cascade of burning sparks. Mara stayed behind with a skeleton crew to cover the retreat. When the final bombardment hit, the outpost was vaporized. Halion 3 fell. But Mara survived. A last-second shield capsule, experimental and untested, had protected her. Buried in rubble, barely conscious, she was recovered by Alliance scouts 3 days later. When she woke aboard the medical frigate Resolute, the first thing she asked was, "Status?" Admiral Cade returned her stare with a grim one of his own. "It's worse than Halion 3, he said. "The Dominion hit 6 colonies. They want us broken before we can respond." "Are Earth and the inner worlds preparing defenses?" she asked. He hesitated. "Mara, the Council is considering surrender." She sat up despite the pain. "Absolutely not." "You don't understand," Cade said. "They claim the Dominion has a superweapon, something they call the Starbreaker. They say it can unmake planets. If Earth is targeted—" Mara swung her legs off the bed. "Then we don't let them target Earth." Cade sighed. "We don't have the fleet. We don't have the weapons. We don't even know where the Dominion homeworld is." Mara smiled. "Then we find it, and we take the fight to them." Cade studied her for a long moment. "You always were insane," he muttered. "Insane enough to win." Middle, the counterstrike. Over the next 2 months, humanity prepared the most daring operation in its history. Mara was given command of the Dauntless, a heavy cruiser retrofitted with prototype stealth plating and a quantum-fold engine, the fastest ever built. The mission was simple on paper. Strike at the heart of the Dominion. Destroy the Starbreaker. Break their fleet from within. But the plan was madness. No human ship had ever infiltrated Dominion space and returned. When the Dauntless lifted from the orbital dockyards, thousands of soldiers saluted from below, knowing some of them might owe their lives to whatever happened next. On board were Lieutenant Rafi, Communications and Encryption, Dr. Alara Tannen, Exotech Scientist, Commander Holt, tactical officer with a reputation for impossible victories. 22 Marines. And Mara, entering Dominion space. Dominion territory was wrong. Artificial nebula fields distorted scanners. Gravity wells appeared and vanished like traps laid by a sadistic engineer. Even space seemed darker, thicker. After slipping past 3 patrol routes, the Dauntless finally approached a structure unlike anything the crew had ever seen. The Dominion Starforge, a mechanical moon, spiked like a crown of thorns, orbiting a dying red star. At its center pulsed a sphere of contained stellar energy. Ilara whispered, "That's the Starbreaker." The superweapon was terrifying in its elegance, a harnessed miniature star with enough destructive yield to boil a planet. Mara exhaled. "We need to plant charges along the stabilizer rings. Rafi, jam all outgoing transmissions. Holt, prepare the Marines." The ship descended toward the superstructure. The Discovery. Inside the Starforge, conditions were worse than expected. Dominion soldiers, tall, insectoid, armored, patrolled every corridor. The Marines moved silently, eliminating small groups, planting charges. But then they found something that froze Mara's blood. A chamber filled with pods. Human pods. Hundreds of them. Inside each pod, a human body suspended in luminescent fluid. Some were unconscious. Some seemed partially altered. Others were simply gone. "What is this?" Rafi whispered. Ilara scanned a console. Her face drained of color. "They're using humans as neuroconductive amplifiers," she said. "Their brains enhance the Starbreaker's targeting matrix." "You're saying," Mara swallowed, "they need us to fire their weapon?" Ilara nodded slowly. "They're not just exterminating us. They're using us." The Marines stiffened. Rage simmered in the air. For the first time since the war began, Mara felt something new. A smirk. If the Dominion needed humans to operate their planet killer, then stealing humans from colonies had been more than cruelty. It had been desperation. "They're weaker than they want us to believe," she said. "So much for their perfect superiority." But before they could free the captives, the alarms blared. Dominion troops flooded the chamber. Commander Holt shouted, "Captain, we're compromised." Mara activated comms. "All units, fall back to the ship. Abort the charges. New priority, rescue the captives." Blaster fire filled the air. Marines dragged pod after pod toward the exit as hulking Dominion war drones dropped from the ceiling. One drone slammed into Mara, pinning her against a wall. Its claws scissored around her armor. "You persist against inevitability," the drone hissed in the Archon's voice. "Humanity is inferior. You should have surrendered." Mara growled, "We don't do that." She jammed her blade between its armor plates, twisted, and ripped the drone in half. The Marines cheered. They fought their way to the extraction ramp. The Dauntless fired its thrusters and peeled away from the Starforge, carrying nearly 200 rescued humans aboard. As the ship escaped into the void, the Dominion fleet began converging. They were angry. Very angry. The Dominion's message. Back aboard the Alliance flagship Resolute, Admiral Cade received a transmitted message. Archon Trispec appeared once again. But this time, the arrogance was gone. His voice trembled with fury. "Return what you have stolen," he snarled. "You have taken vital assets. You jeopardize the balance of the galaxy. If you do not surrender the captives and accept Dominion rule, we will fire the Starbreaker upon your homeworld." His mandibles clicked. "You have one cycle left." When the transmission ended, the command deck was silent. Cade looked at Mara. "You hit a nerve." "They're scared," Mara said. "They need those captives. The Starbreaker won't function without them." "Then why the threat?" "To push us into panic." Cade frowned. "But can they actually fire the Starbreaker now?" Mara hesitated. "Maybe once. A partial firing. Enough to devastate Earth, even if not fully powered." Cade leaned forward. "Then we have less than a cycle to stop them." Mara nodded. "Then we go back." The Admiral blinked. "Back? You barely made it out alive." "We hit them where it hurts," she said. "This time with the fleet." Cade stared for a long moment. Then he gave the only possible answer. "Prepare for the ultimate showdown." The final act, ultimate showdown. The Alliance mobilized every available ship. Old cruisers, new destroyers, stealth frigates, even civilian vessels retrofitted for war. The battle group, Helios, launched toward Dominion space, 100 strong. Humans didn't smirk often. But today, every soldier wore one. The Dominion expected fear. What they got was the largest human fleet ever assembled. The return to the Starforge. The Dominion fleet formed a blockade around the Starforge. Thousands of ships, colossal dreadnoughts, swarms of fighters. Archon Trisvek himself commanded from the bridge of the Dominion flagship Empyrean. Mara, aboard the Dauntless, stared at the monstrous fleet and whispered, "Let's show them what humans do when bullied." The Resolute broadcast one message to the Dominion forces: "We don't surrender." And then the battlefield erupted. The battle. Human ships dove through enemy formations, weaving unpredictable patterns, a tactic the Dominion's rigid algorithms couldn't process. Plasma bursts lit the void. Cruisers rammed dreadnoughts. Fighters carved through shield arrays. The Dominion, rigid and hierarchical, struggled to adapt to chaotic human maneuvers. On the Dauntless, Mara shouted, "Bring us alongside the stabilizer ring. We're taking out the Starbreaker manually." The ship skimmed the Starforge surface, its hull scraping against metallic ridges as it deployed Marines directly onto the superweapon's exterior. Holt radioed in. "Charges planted." Mara exhaled. "Do it." Explosions radiated across the Starforge structure, stabilizer rings shattering, energy conduits bursting. Inside the Dominion flagship, Trisvek screamed in rage. But the Starbreaker still began to hum, the Starcore pulsing, building energy. "They're trying to fire anyway," Ilera yelled. "If it discharges with unstable rings, it'll explode," Mara finished. A chain reaction that would wipe out both fleets, unless someone stopped it. The final gambit. Mara made the decision instantly. "We're going inside." Rafi's eyes widened. "Inside the Starbreaker? We need to destabilize the Starcore manually." The Dauntless dove into the Starforge through a ruptured docking bay. Fires raged along the corridors. Plasma leaked from ruptured coolant lines. They reached the core chamber. The Starcore glowed like a miniature sun, its pulsing waves of heat rippling across the platform. Ilera ran to the console. "If I realign the energy lattice just 2 degrees, it'll collapse inward instead of outward," Mara said. "Destroying the core without a chain reaction." Ilera nodded. "But someone has to stay and hold the sequence manually. The controls will lock." Mara stepped forward. Holt shook his head. "No. Captain, you've done enough." "This is my mission," she said. "Get the crew out." Holt obeyed with clenched fists. As the others ran, Ilera hesitated. "You'll die." Mara smiled. "I know." She placed her hand on the control node. Outside, the battlefield burned. Human ships fought with reckless ferocity. Dominion ships died in unison, unable to adapt. Inside the Starforge, Mara initiated the collapse. Alarms screamed. The Starcore shrank. A single tear slid down Mara's cheek as she whispered, "For Earth." For a moment, everything went white. The ending, aftermath. The explosion was silent. Space swallowed the sound, but its light illuminated the entire system. The Starforge disintegrated. Dominion ships lost command coordination. Without Trisvek's control node, destroyed in the blast, the fleet fractured. Alliance ships surged forward and swept the battlefield. When the smoke cleared, humanity had won. At a cost. The Dauntless was gone. Mara was gone. But Earth lived. The captives were freed. And the Dominion? Crippled. Their myth of superiority shattered. Epilogue: The Legend of Mara Vance. Weeks later, a memorial was held on Earth beneath a rebuilt Alliance monument. Admiral Kate addressed the crowd. "Mara Vance didn't just save us. She reminded the galaxy why humanity endures." He paused, letting the silence settle. "When the Dominion demanded our capitulation, humans did what we always do." He lifted his chin. "We smirked and returned for the ultimate showdown." The crowd erupted in cheers. Because humanity didn't bow to tyrants. It didn't break under pressure. It didn't surrender to threats. It fought. It adapted. It survived. And thanks to people like Mara Vance, it won.